In Climate Watch, climate change is widely reported as having sweeping negative impacts across the globe. But a new report from the New York Times Magazine is focusing on who might capitalize on a warming planet. In this case, it's Russia. Abrahm Lustgarten is the author of that article, and he joins me now. He's a senior reporter focusing on climate change at the New York Times Magazine and ProPublica. Abrahm, thanks for joining us. So what makes Russia so well-suited, especially geographically, for the climate crisis, and what changes are you already seeing?
Yeah, mostly it's that it's the northernmost nation or largest landmass closest to the North Pole. So as the planet warms, all of the northern nations will stand to benefit. Russia will see its lands thaw. It's now covered about 80% in permafrost, and also see its northern coastline open for new Arctic shipping routes that could place it to be really the major go-between between China and Europe and the United States in terms of shipping.
And you report that Russia is currently preparing for climate change. What are they doing?
Yeah, so Russia has begun to seize on opportunities to expand its farming industry. It's trying to become really an agricultural superpower. So as that land thaws, it's pushing for larger and larger yields of wheat, of soybeans, and other food crops that'll both increase its food independence, but also position it to have greater leverage over the rest of the world as it becomes a larger food exporter. Already, the last couple of years, Russia has become the largest grower and exporter of wheat in the world.
It almost sounds like a game of Catan with wheat and livestock and these preparations, but this is real life. So what sort of changes to Russia could we see in the future, and how might that impact their geopolitical standing?
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things that Russia has been very good at seeing happen is that they may both benefit in the ways I've just described as the climate warms, but they'll also benefit as others decline. And so their competitive advantage against the United States, for example, will increase. So part of what's different is what doesn't happen in Russia. You know, the United States will suffer from extraordinary sea level rise that will displace 14 million people. The U.S. economy will likely decline and crop yields will decrease. So as Russia grows in those same ways, it will, it'll have larger influence in the world and presumably larger power and shore up its geopolitical standing. And it's shown a proclivity towards taking advantage of those opportunities when they exist.
Abrahm, I thought your article was very interesting for talking about how Russia is seeing the strategic advantages that could be theirs in climate change. As you mentioned, the United States has much to lose, particularly when it comes to comparative advantage to Russia, but also in terms of real costs. What should the United States be doing right now to try and take advantage, or at least prepare for the possibility of climate change?
Yeah, so I spoke with a lot of defense experts and throughout the U.S. intelligence community in the course of my reporting, and what emerged is a picture of the United States as a country that deals with crisis and responds to storms and is very good at rebuilding and being resilient in that way, but is really less adept at kind of seeing around the corner, and that means making long-term plans to be in a position of strength over the coming decades. And part of that has been our political reluctance to accept the reality of climate change. And you see it in, for example, the number of icebreakers. Russia has 37 or so icebreakers. China, it's not close to, the Arctic has 4 or 5, and the United States has 1 that's really operating well, a second that's about 50 years old. And, that's just an example of the types of policies that are not long-ranging, are not, positioning us to be in a position of strength in the long term, the same way that Russia is already planning to expand its Arctic shipping industry, is already planning to expand its agricultural industry. Those are things the United States might look at, shoring up its capacity to benefit from changed trade patterns and changed food and immigration patterns in the future.
A very interesting and different perspective you offer. Abrahm Lustgarten, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.